Ace Attorney is a detective/murder mystery game where you play as a lawyer solving murder cases and trying to figure out what happened and who did it. Yep, so there's a particular reason as to why I'm doing two franchises in tandem with one another. It's because Professor Layton and Ace Attorney had a crossover game, so I thought it would only be fair and also a fun thing to do, review two franchises at the same time. Hopefully I don't die by the end of this journey. Well, at least I got an excuse to replay Ace Attorney. 2 excuses with the shitty Ace Attorney Trilogy update that doesn't add shit and it could have just been an email, and at the same time I have an excuse to finally play the Layton games after I first played the crossover a year ago. So, let's finally set this plan in motion and talk about the first Phoenix Wright game. Holy fucking shit, I slept on this game for so long. I'm honestly so used to the bullshit that the latest games provide that I was genuinely shocked to see the first game try to do things that they never attempt to do after this one. For starters, pressing is meaningless like in the other games. You can use this mechanic to break testimonies, which, okay man, pretty ballsy of you. And going back to this game also reminded me of how bare bones the investigations in this game are. We will get into that one later. And another thing, the mystery writing is actually solid. As we go through each installment, you'll notice that the writing for each case gets progressively worse and worse, and that we are going to be facing the same problems packaged in different formats on top of other problems just getting injected into this franchise. Honestly, my respect for this game went up by a lot. It feels like an earnest detective game that tries to adhere to that notion alongside telling its own story. Although I think it has to do with the fact that the cases in this one are mysteries taken from other works that work. So obviously the case writing is good. At least I remember that being a fun fact about the first game. Feel free to correct me. So, how does each case in the first Ace Attorney stack up? Only one way to find out. Let's get on with the show already. The very first case of the entire franchise, it's also the most basic one. Which makes sense, tutorials should be relatively basic so that the player can learn how the game functions pretty easily and pretty quickly. And I think this case does an extremely phenomenal job in just 30 minutes. Yes, this case is 30 minutes long. Nowadays you have 2-hour long cases featuring characters that talk about nothing, and some cases dragging out for no reason, so it's a bit of a shock to see another than our case, this being the only one, as far as I'm concerned. The entire premise is this dude murdered this woman in her apartment in a spur of a moment incident. Notice how I said that the woman was murdered by this man. Ace Attorney has a couple of cases where they show who the culprit is, much to their detriment sometimes. This thing is usually reserved for first cases, but not all of them follow this format. We get introduced to all the necessary characters: Phoenix Wright, the protagonist, who is a rookie defense attorney, Mia Fey, the mentor character, there to give us an artificial second chance later on in the trial, and then we have our defendant, Larry Butts, Phoenix's childhood best friend. Once we get into the trial, we get introduced to the judge and the prosecution, Winston Payne. Not gonna lie, I'm not really enamored with anybody at the moment, especially when they try a bit hard with Larry over here. I don't get why the prosecution even called the defendant to the stand, other than to rile him up. And then we have the witness. Hey, it's the dude who did the deed. And then we get introduced to every piece of evidence, and now we get to play a little bit with this little neat thing called cross-examination. Right after we are done with our first witness testimony, I think this is a great mechanic that keeps the cases moving in general. That and the testimonies, really. This man is called Frank Sowett, and this franchise sure loves his fun names. His first testimony is about the time he discovered the murder shortly after it was committed, time being 1 p.m. But that can't be true. We have an autopsy that states that the victim died at 4 p.m. Therefore, there was no body to be found at that time. Right here is when it clicked for me the first time I played this. The thrill of finding contradictions and solving them is what hooked me into this franchise. And I would like to believe the same thing is true for everyone else, I hope. And it's why I stuck around ever since. To be fair, I kinda lost track of that reason, but now that I had time to think about Ace Attorney as a whole and my feelings towards it, well, I wouldn't say I played the games wrong, but I certainly don't feel like I did them justice. So Frank fucks up and tries to correct this mistake, or should I say lie, with another lie. His second testimony is all about this one inconsistency. He claims that there might have been a tape program inside that specified the time, but that is also not true. There was a blackout around that time. It's why he didn't use the phone inside the apartment since it was out of commission. The animation here does a phenomenal job at inferring to the player that they are doing a great job. Seeing this guy quake in his boots is mildly satisfying, but he's not behind bars, is he? His next testimony is about how Frank heard the time through the murder weapon, but hold on, it's a statue. How can a statue be a clock? Well, actually, fun fact from the prosecutor here is that this indeed is a clock. Twist the neck and it will say the time out loud. But there's a problem with that. The only way Frank would know that this statue was a clock was to use it. So this can mean one thing: he was inside the apartment for starters, and we get hit with the ever so famous one-liner, "Proof?" You know, it brings a tear in my eye to see its origins again. It's like watching someone being born, I think. So you have to prove that he murdered the victim based on Phoenix's conjecture. One thing we can do is to sound the clock. The clock says the time is 8:25, but currently it's 11:25, a 3-hour difference. However, Frank argues that it's not enough then, and that he asks us if we know that the clock was 3 hours slow on the day of the murder, which is a valid point. The proof for this is the passport. The victim just came back from a trip to France according to it, so therefore the clock wasn't actually 3 hours slow, but 9 hours fast. And since there wasn't enough time to reset the clock, that's proof positive the clock was 3 hours slow, quote unquote, on the day of the murder. Our reward for deducing that? A breakdown from the witness. Breakdowns are generally reserved for when you undeniably proven the culprit is guilty, and they can be pretty satisfying. And just like that, the first case is over. It presents a neat little mystery, didn't waste any time getting to the point, has no leaps of logic nor errors, and it was short enough so that the player can get introduced to the trial gameplay in a fun manner. But at the end of the day, this case is as basic as fuck mysteries can get. Alright, so starting with this case, we are gonna see the cases being structured in an investigation segment, and then we get to the trial segment. That's basically surface level structure when it comes to cases. You can't have messy cases where you can't tell what the hell's going on at all times and shit just happens in general. So anyways, we start with the case with our mentor being murdered? Oh no! I don't know, this is a bit too abrupt for me. Like, we barely know Mia at this point. I do care a bit slightly, but not by much, since at this point, we are still unfamiliar with these characters. Doubly so, considering this was supposed to be the first case of the entire game. At that point, I wouldn't really give a shit about Mia, not gonna lie. Alright, let's finally talk about investigations. I won't be so real with you, the investigations in this game can feel pretty drab. I think the game does a good job at guiding you to whatever you need to go and talk to, or just go in general. The way you navigate these locations in this case specifically, isn't that bad, especially since there aren't that many locations. You get introduced to the rest of the cast. By that I mean the detective and the prosecutor. Ted Gumshoe in his first outing is a way different character than his latest appearance, and Miles Edgeworth is also a way different character than his latest appearance for the complete opposite reasons in terms of narrative, as well as Maya Fey, who will become your sidekick character after this one. She's also the main suspect and the defendant of the case. The reason she got arrested? Her name was written on a receipt with the victim's blood. I don't need to tell you that that reason alone is not grounds for arrest, but what do I know? I don't have the mind of the police folk. I don't comprehend the world of crime like they do. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, this case also tells you who the killer is at the beginning. I think the game does a solid job at teaching the player the ways of investigating. It's not rocket science, and it gets the job done in just a few moments. I like this, but honestly, aside from the aforementioned Gumshoe, Edward, and Maya, and also learning about her being a spirit medium, which I skipped because I already played these games before, there isn't a whole lot that happens in this investigation segment. You meet the witness, who is a bad bitch, literally. You also meet this other lawyer who is Mia's mentor and who is extremely bland. Oh yeah, he also can help you with Maya, that's why you have to do the defending. You also learn a bit about this incident that took place 15 years ago, but it isn't relevant. And you get some juicy evidence from the witness without her knowledge. Alright, first trial date, they're explaining how the crime is set up. We're good so far. Apparently Gumshoe has hard evidence Maya did it. And here comes the biggest surprise when it comes to pressing. So on a surface level, pressing is just a game mechanic you can use to get more info. Sounds good? Well, the later games certainly make this mechanic be worthless by making many testimonies suck ass, so I kinda blew my mind a little bit that the answer to the first testimony is not to present evidence to a contradiction, but to press this statement. I cannot believe I used press to break a testimony. Suddenly I feel like I walked into a weird world. There's no way, and yet my eyes aren't deceiving me. Interesting usage of press if I do say so myself. And I massively prefer this way over the more recent games where the main strategy just ends up being press every statement and then find a contradiction. That's a very shallow way of playing a mystery game, not gonna lie. Next testimony is all about that piece of paper with Maya's name on it, which again isn't sufficient proof she did it. Anyone could have written that, but Gumshoe argues that the victim wrote that based on the blood on her fingers. But we have an autopsy that states she died instantly, so once again, we have a good start. But then Edward objects with a surprise second autopsy where it states she pretty much died instantly. Did he say pretty much? Honestly, what an ass pull, not gonna lie. This is Edward's first attempt at trying to do everything in his power to get a guilty verdict, because he's that guy. He's built like that, man. Next we have the witness, April May, take the stand, and she's talking about what she witnessed. From now on, the case is all about deconstructing April May's testimony to figure out what actually happened that fateful night. Even if at times Phoenix makes some dumb points like how Miss May should have noticed Maya's clothes before her physique. To me at least, that's not really a strong point, especially since Miss May would have viewed the crime at a distance. I don't know, I think it's possible that she noticed the girly physique before her clothing, but besides that, it is smooth sailing. She makes the classic decision of knowing the murder weapon, the Thinker statue, is actually a clock. One thing I want to mention about this game is that there are many choice options like this one that don't really matter. It doesn't even make sense, like both options are correct. She couldn't have heard the clock because it couldn't have wrong. Both are true. But I don't know, I haven't seen what the other option did. I just think it's useless to have these kinds of prompts. I also like that Edward comes in to make a counter argument or accusation. That's pretty nice. We keep on grilling April May over this one issue. We even roast the hell out of her. Not gonna lie, that's pretty funny. Can we get more funny roasts like this one in the future entries? Oh yeah, before we end this, I also just want to point out that this question from Edgar is really idiotic, because it proves he did not pay attention earlier when we presented the recorded conversation earlier, which clearly mentions that the statue is a clock. Edgar, you foolish fool! So he proved that Miss May did some wiretapping, but that's not really relevant to the case, is it? Well, the only way we get out of this situation is by putting the bellboy on the stand, and we go through a very tedious cross-examination where we just aimlessly press until the game tells you to go forward. I don't like this. I also don't like that I have to ask a randomized question, which I love that none of these options matter since we are still getting what we want. But at the end of the day, we do find out about the man who has not been questioned at all, so that's enough to call it a day. So far, the case was pretty quick, getting to the point, and it did have some hiccups here and there, but overall, I don't know, it's still pretty good so far. Second investigation day is kind of whatever. You just bully Miss May into giving you what you want, and then you get your ass kicked by Red White. Hey, wait a minute, that's the dude from the beginning of the case. I like how they hype him up to be this big bad, because his performance in court is going to drastically change anyone's perception of him in terms of danger. I also don't like that Phoenix is dumb to present valuable evidence in front of the culprit. Like, come on, man. Second day trial, I'm going to be brutally honest. This man is a jock of the highest caliber. I find it funny that he was hyped up a little bit in the investigation, and then on the trial, he's just a bumbling buffoon who is, Your Honor, my tummy hurts. Can I go to the bathroom? Just amazing writing. Anyways, in terms of case writing, also not bad. I want to make this blatantly clear and try to explain why the first objection here works. So we use Miss May's testimony where the victim ran to the right and then died. Meanwhile, White says that the victim ran to the left. When you use testimony, you can't really trust what said person is saying. It wouldn't make sense. Even if said person is innocent or a suspect, if you use their testimony to prove something, then the answer is a straight up no. You can't really verify the credibility of said testimony, but in this case, they mentioned that most of May's testimony was struck off with the exception of this piece of info, and it's also taken from the courthouse. It's fair to say this is a fact. What's not a fact is the fact that I have to press all the statements, then cycle through his last testimony again just so I can move forward. What the hell? And you want to know what's extra ass about this? The lame ass ending. Apparently that receipt at the beginning, the one with Maya's name on it, no one bothered to look at the actual receipt. And fucking Mia, channeled by Maya, has to be the one to point that out. Like, that's just extremely lame. And the last piece of evidence, aka the list of names, I smell a lot of Deus Ex Machina perfume, smelly bastards. And that's the end of the case. Everyone is happy, well, except for one guy. Phoenix gets the office to himself, and everyone lived happily ever after. Alright, I don't want to spend too much time talking about Turnabout Samurai because it's a lame case. For starters, each and every investigation is so bad. When I say that, I mean it is quite irritating the shit this game has you doing. I did say that the game does a good enough job on informing you on where to go, except for this one. I got lost on the second investigation day. I didn't know what to do. The third day of investigating is just a fetch quest simulator. Like, actually that's all you do in that one. The first day is fine. You know, I always think in my head that the first game is very fast paced, lightning levels of pacing even. Until it decides it's no longer fast. It bugged me a little bit in this case, but it gets worse in case 4 and 5. The trial segment's first day is having Wendy Allback, the security lady, testify about Will Powers, the defendant going to the scene of the crime, being Studio 1. While the way these topics are discussed are fine, I can't help but wonder, why doesn't anyone point out that you can just go around the automatic camera? Like, literally you can just do that, evidenced by the fanboy later on the case. I also don't like that once we found out about this little kid, they tried to unsuspect him. While it might be physically impossible for the kid to commit the crime, that doesn't mean he isn't relevant to the case. What if he's a witness? I also hate that Salmonella took up like 2 testimonies that don't amount to anything really. Like, they're straight up a waste of time. And the way you solve them is also really fucking weird. Like, you have to press this testimony and then he says some bullshit and then you cycle to another statement to press that and that's how you break it? I'm all for experimental gameplay, but this is not it. This is a bizarre way of solving anything really. No photo. Cody Hackins. I like him on the stand. He's a fun character. I also love how much of a dickhead Phoenix is. Like, welcome to the real world, kid. Or, this feels great. When he bullshits a fantasy to Cody. That's hilarious. I also want to mention the no photo testimony since I have seen a misconception about it. So Cody says he couldn't get the lens out in time for the killing blow and didn't take a picture. Phoenix bullies this little kid into admitting he did take a picture. Nick, I'm watching you perform in core, bro. Why are you trying not to laugh, bro? That's disrespectful as shit, bro. The fuck is wrong with you? Stop fucking laughing, bro! Anyways, afterwards, Cody says he did took a few shots, but he erased them, and this is the objection I want to talk about. The misconception is that Phoenix assumes he would have taken a shot after each victory, but Cody clearly states he wasn't familiar with the camera, so why couldn't him not taking a shot be right? But he says here that he did take a few shots, he just deleted them. And the real point of contention is, if the Steel Samurai was victorious, a point Cody was pretty insistent on, then why would Cody delete those photos? Because the Steel Samurai didn't win. I just wanted to mention this one aspect. The Vasquez. I want to like her, but she's really bland. I'm just gonna glance past this Phoenix fumble in the final investigation day. Her performance on trial is alright, but if we want to talk about actual bullshit objections, then the first objection here is pretty lame. Phoenix just assumes Vasquez didn't eat any steak because... I mean, what if she did eat steak and then just throw the bones in the incinerator? It's not like anyone checked the incinerator for any clues. Nah. You know, it gets worse because Phoenix says that she disposed of the costume by using the incinerator. Notice the usage of the word probably. What if Vasquez ate the steak and threw the bones in? It's not like anyone actually checked the godforsaken incinerator. I really don't like the stupid ass sandwich between good points and dog shit. Also, I love that they mentioned Salmonella as a conspirator, and yet that matters so little in this case. Like, what the fuck, man? Overall, ass investigations, solid trial segments into the last one. This case served more as like a filler case to have some character moments to establish them a bit more, which is fine, but it came to a cost for the final day. Oh boy, this case. So, I may have alerted earlier to the fact that this is one of the cases where pacing just dies. We'll talk about it in a second. So the entire case is all about this boat in the middle of a lake during Christmas Eve where one man got shot by the other, and that other man is none other than Miles Edgeworth, or so they say. Investigations are so fucking boring, man. There's no song playing in the background most of the time, especially the first day of investigating. A lot of dead air surrounds this case. The first investigation day is alright. Edgeworth tells you to fuck off, you meet a southern gal and make her a witness, that's fun. You learn who the victim is and Gumtree yells at you for making up random witnesses and you'll learn a lot about DL-6. For the most part, the investigation is alright and the investigation itself is also fine. The DL-6 incident is Edgeworth's sad backstory. Let's see how much I care about this based on how much they will keep yapping about this close incident. First trial day, I have to talk about who the prosecutor is. Manfred von Karma. Fucking king! This dude wastes no time getting to the point, not like the game had a lot of problems with pacing up until this point, and makes his intentions blatantly obvious. This dude wants Edgeworth's ass in jail. I also love how much influence he has over the court, and how slowly his influence wears thin over the course of the entire case. This guy truly feels like the final boss. I mean, the first day of the trial already feels like a major switch in terms of difficulty progression. Ace Attorney in general has a lot of problems when it comes to difficulty progression. They often have to result in a lot of unconventional ways to artificially increase the difficulty, but I think they actually nailed it here. Case 3 felt a bit more similar to Case 2, but Case 4 there's a noticeable shift in difficulty evidenced by the almost no contradiction spotted in Lauda's testimony. Gumshoe's testimony was fine, it was just you pressing certain statements to get more evidence. But Lauda's testimony is kinda crazy. A press all testimony? Well, okay, I'm not entirely sure if it's a press all testimony, but that's how I won. And let me just say this, press all testimonies are fucking boring. This testimony is really vague, and I suppose Maya butting in to confront Lauda directly is a nice way to endear the player to Maya. At least that allows us to get to the first objection, Lauda lying about clearly seeing Edgeworth on the boat. but the problem is the fog surrounding the lake's evidenced by the photo. I really like this first part. I think it did a great job at selling you on how scary Manfred can be. This testimony is clearly manipulated to the highest degree, and I think this entire sequence was pretty cool. The second testimony also works. Lotta says that she set up the camera for meteor showers, but the camera was facing the lake and there was a microphone set to loud noises and the trigger set the camera. Oh, I forgot about this specific plot point. So there was a monster sighting at Gord Lake, and said monster was nicknamed Gordy, and that's what Lotta was doing, trying to photograph Gordy. I will be honest, this isn't really that interesting, especially when it's blatantly obvious the outcome is that the creature isn't real. Like, wow, you don't say. Pretty based for them to have me say that Lotta was mucking around at the lake only to hit me with the so what card. Because it's true, Lotta did see a boat on the lake at the end of the day. Anyway, she didn't actually watch the boat at all. A bit more underwhelming, but a fitting end, and we still don't know who is shooting who on the picture. Which is why Lotta enlarged it and Von Karma tried to hide that fact. So the pistol has Edward's right fingerprints on it, but a blatant contradiction on the enlarged photo is the shooter is using his left hand. That's enough for a delay. Day 2 of investigating, nothing happens. All you do is figure out the mystery behind Gordy, which, oh, wouldn't you know it, he was fake the entire time. Color me shocked. We learn this old man is the next witness, and then by some miracle his bird knows about DL-6. Plot convenience at its finest, huh? Well, we learn more about DL-6, and that's about it for this day. Trial day 2 is pretty nuts. We have the old man on the stand, and he basically says that was Edward who did it. He even recalled his words, I can't believe he's dead. That's a little crazy, not gonna lie. What's crazier is us getting a fake game over and then getting saved by Larry fucking Butts, bro. He heard the gunshot. Alright, so now we gotta question this silly man, and okay, I cannot lie, this was kinda epic. You know, Ace Attorney, you can have moments like this one in your story. It's just that I wish the cases themselves weren't slow, because I don't mind this is fun. Want to talk about things that caught me off guard? This profile of Lotta looks so bad! Oh my god! Holy shit, she looks like a fucking frog. So Larry's whole deal is that he only heard one gunshot that entire night while listening to the radio, and let's just say the fact that some DJ's words were saved the entire case for us is a true, almost Christmas miracle. Although I really hate the fact that the gun was fired 3 times only now comes up. Like, I feel like this should have been addressed relatively as soon as we got this into our evidence, because it was stuck in there before Lotta testified. That single piece of information was just there the whole time, and no one addressed it. That's pretty shitty. Now Phoenix starts explaining the entire case, and I don't know how I should feel at Phoenix practically spewing conjecture. Compelling conjecture, but conjecture nonetheless. I guess they did it like this because it would be impossible to show how they did it. After all, it is a simplistic case. Also, holy curiosity, is the judge in this game not that goofy? He's actually normal, a breath of fresh air, and I honestly like him more like this. Anyways, this day is over because the boat shop caretaker has gone missing, so cue in final investigation day. We get Phoenix's super sad backstory. This game is really hard carried by your ability to care about these characters. Not that I don't care. This backstory is cute, and it doesn't take much time to get over it. It works. Random Marvin Grossberg jump scare. Like, seriously, what the fuck was he doing there? This entire day is all about investigating the safe in the boat shop and finding out stuff about DL-6, and that Manfred might be a really bad guy? No way! The dude who will do everything to win is actually bad? Also, okay, I gotta mention this. Is Phoenix mentally stupid? He did the exact same shit to 2 other culprits where he presented decisive evidence to them and got his ass manhandled. Is he stupid? What the fuck is his problem? What's extra funny is that in case 3, when Maya wanted to present something to Oldback, Nick was like, actually, let's not do that. Where was this mentality across the entire game? Final trial day. What are we talking about the motive? I swear to fucking god, don't start this shit, okay? The motive in Ace Attorney is the biggest load of shit I have ever seen before. Maya didn't have a motive to kill her sister, and neither Phoenix. Will Powers had 0 motives to kill his fellow co-worker. What makes you special, Yanni Yogi? Oh yeah, we gotta prove this man is Yanni Yogi. How are we doing that? By having the parrot testify. Sure, I set my ATM score to 0001 because I'm number 1. Yes, you are, king. Fucking why is my so fucking golden, man? And I love that in this other instance, bro hit Nick with the pedo allegations. Like, okay, do you guys think Phoenix Wright was on the Epstein list? I don't know, it's more likely than you think. Anyways, with these two coincidences, Yanni confesses out of the blue. Wait, what? Kinda underwhelming? A sudden confession and it went by so quickly you might have missed it. So, does that mean we can talk about case 5 now? No, we can have nice things here. Alright, so this right here is where the case just dies. Because, okay, we proved that Edward was innocent, and besides some phrasing I got stuck on, I think everything was alright. What's not alright is them flashing back to the DL6 incident a couple of dozens of times. Like, wow, the game was too quick for me. Thank God they slowed it down. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to follow the peak plot. Look, guys, Edward's sad backstory. Anyways, Manfred did it, but I do have one question. Did he murder Gregory without leaving any fingerprint? To our knowledge, he must have used a gun, and it's not like he walks around with gloves, so I find that part a bit unbelievable. Either way, rest in peace, King. You will be missed. And everyone was happy and beat the shit out of Larry for being the thief who stole the lunch money. The end. Did you know there was a So Rise from the Ashes is a bit of a special case. This one was released for the first game as a bonus for the DS re-release. The Phoenix Wright Trilogy was a GBA game series first, then they ported the games onto DS. Interesting to think that the first game received an extra special case to celebrate this. Why didn't the second game got one extra case? The third game, I get it didn't need one, it already had 5 cases. But now the second game is this middle child with 4 games sandwiched between 2 games with 5 cases each. Anyways, case 5 is also radically different because it was written after like 2 whole games. Basically, this was on the DS. They were allowed to do more things, for example, because, you know, you can examine evidence. Wow, it feels so 3D. Now I can sniff my batch for hours on end. The case barely uses this feature. Missed opportunity, sure, but I find it hilarious that they had a tutorial on how to examine evidence in this 3D space, and only relevant thing you do with it is the tutorial. At no point in this case are you ever required to examine evidence, even the few times that I did do on this playthrough just so I can be extra sure probably didn't matter at the end of the day. And before you say, what about that minigame where you align the vase to make it look like blue no, that's not examining the evidence, and even then that's a really dumb minigame in and of itself. In fact, I'm gonna talk about this case like I did with case 3. This case is long, and I'm starting to feel a bit lazy because it's Christmas at the time I'm writing this. I need to get this video done now! I wanna enjoy my sad, lonely time, okay? I already talked about examining evidence being meaningless. Wanna know something even more ass? Sometimes the game takes control from you to select a piece of evidence to do some shit, and I have to wonder why. I can do it myself, guys. And plus this case has a lot of pieces of evidence, and the cursor itself is slow. You're practically just slowing down the case for no damn reason. The minigames of this case, there is a moment where you rebuild a face, which is fine. It's a fun enough minigame, I suppose. The fingerprint powder, where you identify where the fingerprint is, this totally isn't annoying. On the rare occasions the game doesn't register the damn fucking thing, and then you fill up the entire screen with meth and then blow it away. But that's not enough. Do it again, but on the edges this time. Fuck off. And then you compare the fingerprint with the prints of other people. This is fucking lame, and I hope this doesn't come back in the near future. Too tedious for my own liking. Yeah, they will totally retire this thing for future installments, and they will absolutely not make the most dogshit version of it on the second to last game on the series. No sorry. This stupid minigame where you have to match the face to make a shape similar to the blue batch's head. I don't want to brag, but I did it on my first fuck. It was a misinput. You calm down! You calm the fuck down! It was a misinput! Oh yeah, I almost forgot the minigame where you spray luminol for blood and it's like, sure. I keep forgetting how to trigger this thing on the place that matter. This is so stupid. Anyways, the minigame isn't that compelling. Just spray whatever the fuck you feel like until you find blood. I don't know, these minigames are just a bunch of smoke and mirrors. They don't make me have a deeper understanding of how the crime was committed. It doesn't really infer to my answers as to me figuring out the culprit. I don't think these matter that much, and they take a lot of time. Let me also add that investigations are fucking boring as fuck. Oh my god, let me address the elephant in the room. The constant flashbacks to the SL9 incident. And another DL6 so soon? Like, this happens constantly in the investigations especially, and it's like, okay, I get it! I don't need to be reminded 24/7 about your sad backstory. You leave me alone, please. Instead of Maya, we have Emma, the scientist teen. I mean, she is alright, but she really does feel like the only personality is I love science. She is involved in the plot, but at the end of the day, she's nothing more but a Maya clone. And I wasn't, and still isn't, like the biggest Maya fan, so you're bound to fail. Jake Marshall is pretty cool. I love how his whole gimmick is just Wild West cowboy shenanigans. Damon Gant is a really cool villain in my eyes. I like his calm demeanor and how he can change it on a dime. That's fun. What's not fun is this dude staring at the screen, nothing happening for a few seconds. It's like the setup for a creepypasta scare. Angel Star. Alright. Lana Sky is a bit tragic. I would like her and her story certainly is interesting, but I feel like there is something holding her back from becoming a pretty cool character. I can't put my finger on it, but something does feel like it's missing. As for the case itself, I went into this with an open mind, but I didn't expect anything from it. Each and every other case from this game was derivative of something last I checked. So yeah, the cases themselves being like this makes sense, but this is the first original written case. So I was a bit skeptical, and in all honesty, this isn't bad. Each trial day is utilized to perfection. Each day is about its own separate location. The first day is about uncovering the parking lot mystery, and if that one gets fully resolved later. Day 2 is all about the alleged murder at the police station inside the evidence room, and day 3 is all about the SL-9 incident and proving forgeries and shit like that. I think having separate locations being connected by something to string them together allowed them to really flesh out the mystery for each one. Maybe SL-9 is the exception. The evidence room mystery is like the best one here, especially because we have a camera here and it's really fun pointing out contradictions in the footage. I think that's pretty neat. There's only two issues. One, the stupid Blue Badger song playing in the background is irritating to high heavens. And two, I don't like how slow the camera itself is. Like, I feel like this footage is supposed to go on much quicker than it currently is. I also don't like when the characters talk about the footage and the footage is used as like a background support and then they're just done talking and I just gotta wait for the footage to be done. That's just fucking stupid. Otherwise, I think day 1 and 2 of the trials are pretty strong. Day 3 is a bit shaky. I feel like the big coincidence with the Blue Badger's head is a bit too contrived. And I don't understand how the fucking blade from the Prosecutor's Award trophy can even be used as a weapon. Maybe to smack someone, but not stab them. I also found the writing on the jar a smidge bit unbelievable. Bro got impaled on a sword and it was dark as fuck, so how did Neil know Emma pushed him? Never mind having enough life in his body to write the dying message. One final thing, I actually like the character drama in this case. Listen man, as much as I talk about these cases and that I only care about the cases yada yada yada, when you have well-made character drama and good as mystery writing to go along with it, you can bet your sweet ass that I'm gonna be doubly invested. And that's it! Holy fuck, this took some time. I have a feeling these videos are gonna be long as hell. But hey, I had fun making this video, and if anything, I think I learned to appreciate this first game so much more than I did a year ago. Which is to say, I didn't. There are problems in this game. The investigations being boring as fuck and having ass navigation which gets egregious in case 5. Some pace breakers here and there that's pretty annoying in this game because in general this game is pretty quick. You are breathing my air! But overall, this game isn't bad. The trials themselves are relatively fun. I had a great time playing the game and I learned to not underestimate this game ever again. Hopefully the next game will be better than this, right? Right? Well, no matter what happens, I hope you guys had a great Christmas and Happy New Year, by the way. Have a nice day.